The dusk that settled over Highland Park that evening wasn't the soft romantic kind. It was the heavy, suffocating velvet of old money, the kind that clings to your skin even after you've scrubbed it raw. From the passenger seat of the gleaming white G-Wagon, I watched the manicured lawns and limestone facades blur into an expensive watercolor. We were approaching the Capital Grille on McKinney Avenue, the battlefield for tonight's final engagement. I was Lauren McAllister-Harrington, 34, and for the last 7 years, a highly polished accessory to the Harrington empire. My dress, an emerald silk sheath that cost more than most people's monthly mortgage, felt less like couture and more like armor plating. Trey opened my door with a practiced, almost mechanical flourish. He leaned in, planting a chaste public kiss just beneath my ear, careful to avoid smudging my professional-grade makeup. The flashbulbs, even from discreet distances, popped in my peripheral vision. I could already feel the phantom weight of the online audience we were about to court. "Smile, Lulu," he murmured his breath, smelling faintly of mint and ambition. "Tonight, you're the punchline." I offered him the practiced, empty-eyed grin of a former SMU cheer captain who had peaked at 21. "Wouldn't miss it for the world, Trey." This was our 7th anniversary dinner. To the world, to the oil patch legends, the junior league donors, and the burgeoning army of TikTok voyeurs, we were the golden couple of Harrington Energy, a mid-tier fracking giant built on grit, political favors, and the kind of accounting that made auditors sweat. But Trey and I were past the facade. We were standing on the precipice of a meticulously planned explosion, and I was just waiting for him to light the match. I just intended to make sure I was holding the fire extinguisher when it went off. The unraveling didn't begin with a dramatic confrontation, but with the dull, banal necessity of keeping Trey's luxury toys clean. He'd left his Tesla in the garage after a particularly rough weekend. A weekend I spent alone at our $6.2 million estate in University Park, nursing lukewarm Chardonnay and scrolling through Kaylee Dunn's suspiciously flattering Instagram stories. I was vacuuming the spotless black leather interior, the ritual of the trophy wife, when I spotted it tucked between the center console and the passenger seat, a wrinkled Neiman Marcus receipt, my fingers adorned with a Cartier love bracelet that Trey had given me for our 3rd anniversary smoothed the paper. The date was 2 days prior. The item description made my blood run cold, instantly sober, and infinitely focused. One custom black Stetson hat. Embroidery 7 years wasted. Gold thread. Engraved buckle. Delivery date, October 14th. Our anniversary tonight. The sheer brazen entitlement of it struck me like a physical blow. It wasn't just the cheating, which I'd known about for a year. It was the performance. He wasn't just leaving me. He was crafting my public humiliation for his own amusement. I didn't cry. Crying was for amateur wives. Instead, I returned the receipt to the console, finished the vacuuming, and went straight to the home office, a room Trey rarely entered, unless he needed a specific bottle of scotch. I pulled up the files I'd secretly downloaded over the last 6 months, utilizing the backdoor access I'd earned by mastering the complex proprietary software Harrington Energy used. Trey, arrogant in his belief that his wife was too busy planning charity luncheons to understand profit and loss statements, had left the keys to the kingdom lying around. It wasn't just petty cash. Deep within the shadowy shell structure of a Cyprus holding company, I found TH3 Freedom Fund. The balance, moving in large, irregular injections from the corporate operating budget, clocked in at $2.1 million. Trey wasn't just broke. He was bleeding the company dry, preparing for a swift solo exit the moment he divorced me and tied me up in litigation. My next stop was the social calendar archive. I scrolled past galas and fundraising receipts until I landed on the event planning documents for tonight. The Capital Grille private dining room reserved under Vivian Harrington guest list, and buried in the catering addendum, string quartet fee, special request play upon presentation of centerpiece gift. The accompanying note written in Vivian's severe angular script, Single Ladies by Beyoncé, must be loud. Vivian Harrington, the Dallas matriarch who ran the junior league like the CIA and treated me like a particularly fragile houseplant, wasn't just complicit. She was the director. This wasn't just Trey's divorce. It was a Harrington family tradition, the public dismantling of the McAllister girl. I needed an audience, but not one I could control. I needed eyes on the inside. My strategy dictated a necessary, albeit risky, detour. I knew Trey's routine. Every Tuesday afternoon he was at the Petroleum Club for a long lunch. I drove my own vehicle that day, a low-key black Escalade, and parked 3 blocks from the Capital Grille. I walked in, not toward the host stand, but toward the bar, slipping into a corner stool near the service entrance. I ordered a club soda with extra lime, the most innocuous drink in the arsenal. I watched Sophia Reyes. She was 28, effortlessly gorgeous, in the way that requires excellent genetics and no need for the high-collared protection of Dallas society. She was fast efficient, and her eyes missed nothing. On Instagram, she was at Dallas Tea Spills, boasting 150K followers who tuned in daily for her slightly cynical, perfectly timed dish on who was cheating, on whom and which heiress was caught shoplifting at North Park Center. When she swung by my station to drop off a water pitcher for the next table, I caught her eye. "Sophia Wright, I follow you. You're the best thing on my feed." She gave me a polite, practiced smile. "Thank you, ma'am. Can I get you anything else?" I leaned in, lowering my voice until it was just the right level of conspiratorial intimacy. "I'm going to be the main event tonight, Sophia. And I need an early spoiler." Her professional veneer cracked just for a second. Her eyes flickered toward the private dining area entrance, then back to me. "I don't know what you mean, Mrs. Harrington." "The hat. The song. The hat that says 7 years wasted," I whispered. "It's real, isn't it? And your inside source is Vivian." Sophia hesitated. This wasn't some gossip about a misplaced alimony check. This was the mainframe of Dallas power being exposed. My status as the scorned wife, the underdog, was clearly appealing to her hunger for genuine times T**. She glanced around. The maitre d' was busy seating a party of 4 hedge fund managers. She leaned closer. "It's bigger than the hat, Lulu," she breathed, using my nickname, the first sign of trust. Vivian booked the whole sound system for the reveal. She wants a viral moment. She told Trey and I, quote, "We'll break her on Insta Live number Harrington divorce trends by dessert." The confirmation felt less like a punch and more like the final piece of the blueprint slotting into place. My humiliation was budgeted, rehearsed, and ready for prime time. I gripped my empty glass. A slow, chilling calm settled over me, the absolute zero of emotion that precedes true action. "Thank you, Sophia," I said, my voice steady. I slipped a folded $100 bill onto the bar. "If you record tonight's disaster, I want the raw, unedited footage first. And I'll pay double whatever the live stream makes you." I stood up, leaving her stunned. If they want a show, I thought, striding out into the Dallas heat, I'll give them the season finale. The immediate response to Trey's carefully laid trap was not to panic, but to pivot. I had 30 days until the anniversary dinner to dismantle the Harrington infrastructure brick by expensive brick. My first move required leaving Dallas entirely. Trey Harrington III was the charming heir, the golden boy. But he had an older brother, Cole, the inconvenient truth of the Harrington family tree. Cole was exiled 15 years ago after he'd done the unthinkable. He valued the EPA regulations more than the bottom line. Big Trey had cooked the books to dodge fines related to a particularly nasty spill in West Texas, and Cole had the evidence. He walked away losing his inheritance but keeping his soul. Cole now ran a formidable boutique class action firm in Austin, specializing in suing polluters. He was the mirror image of Trey, sharper, less polished, fueled by righteous anger rather than cheap cocaine. Crucially, when Big Trey drafted the original incorporation papers, Cole insisted on ironclad bylaws that secured him 22% of Harrington Energy stock, regardless of operational disputes. Big Trey had always assumed Cole would never fight for it. I needed Cole. I told Trey I was taking a spontaneous restorative girls' weekend in Austin with 2 friends from the Dallas Country Club who were notoriously terrible at texting back. I packed Dior luggage, leaving the G-Wagon in the garage. Austin was louder, dirtier, and infinitely more honest than Dallas. I found Cole not in a sleek downtown office, but nursing a cheap beer in a honky-tonk off South Congress, his bespoke shirts replaced by a faded flannel and scuffed Lucchese boots. He looked weary, older than his 39 years, but undeniably strong. "You look like you got lost on the way to Neiman Marcus," he said, not standing up as I approached his booth. "I took the long way around," I replied, sliding in opposite him. I didn't apologize for the intrusion. I ordered a bourbon neat. We talked for hours about the stifling pressure of the Harrington name, about the way Big Trey weaponized charm, and about the sheer absurdity of marrying into that life. "You're the only Harrington who ever apologized for existing," I told him, realizing the profound truth of the statement as I said it. He offered a rare, genuine smile. "And you," Cole countered, tracing the rim of his glass, "are the only one who looks like she's actually planning to run away from the family dinner." The chemistry was instantaneous, a dangerous spark, colliding with years of unspoken resentment toward the same toxic legacy. We didn't talk about oil or bylaws or Trey. We talked about the suffocating weight of expectation. We slept together that night in his minimalist apartment overlooking the Colorado River. The next morning, the television in Cole's living room was buzzing. A full-scale times 60 minutes times expose was airing detailing systemic corruption in Texas. Oil drilling permits corruption that implicated several key executives at Harrington Energy. Cole leaned against the doorframe, watching the anchor sign off. "Anonymous source," he murmured, looking at me. I poured myself coffee. "Smart source. They'll never trace it back to Austin." The next morning, back in Dallas, the reality of my burgeoning revolution hit me in the sterile white light of the master bathroom. 2 pink lines. Week 6. Trey hadn't touched me in 4 months, not since I'd started asking pointed questions about offshore tax shelters. The truth of paternity was as clear as the diamond on my left hand. The baby was Cole's. A Harrington heir, conceived with the exiled brother, who was currently suing the corporation. The poetic justice was almost too delicious to manage. The pregnancy gave me a fierce maternal shield. Trey's divorce strategy, designed to leave me penniless and reputationless, was now targeting my child. The stakes escalated from revenge to protection. I called Blake Donovan. Donovan wasn't just a Dallas attorney. He was a specialist in hostile marital takeovers. A shark, known for leveraging his opponent's ego against them. Think Amber Heard's lawyer, but actually competent and frighteningly effective in a Texas courtroom. Lulu Donovan drawled, sounding unimpressed by my silk robe. "I hear Trey is planning a performance art piece for your anniversary. Standard Texas divorce law will leave you with a condo and a settlement. We need scorched earth." I explained the Cayman account. Donovan didn't even pause. "We need to freeze those transfers before the wire clears, which means we need a narrative of immediate, irrecoverable harm." We worked for 3 days, fueled by Donovan's coffee and my growing terror for the future. On day -10, we secured an emergency temporary restraining order, tying up the TH3 Freedom Fund before Trey could liquidate it entirely. The following afternoon, Trey called me his charming facade, strained into a taut wire. "Lulu, my Amex was declined at the valet at the Petroleum Club." "What the hell kind of joke is this?" Perhaps I said, looking at the calendar marking the anniversary date. "You need to check your credit limit, Trey. Or maybe the bank is just getting nervous about your recent expenditures." While Trey was sweating the Amex rejection, Cole was moving in Austin. He filed the quiet title suit, formally demanding recognition of his 22% ownership based on the original articles of incorporation. It wasn't just a demand. It was a threat of corporate paralysis. If successful, it forced Harrington Energy into a mandatory buyout negotiation, or worse, bankruptcy, exactly what Trey feared most. The University Park Mansion, our $6.2 million trophy home, was technically community property, but Trey had been too distracted, too drunk during the closing to read the fine print. In a moment of misplaced ego, he'd insisted everything be solely in my Times name, citing some ludicrous narrative about my superior credit rating. It was now my primary asset. I listed it, FSBO for sale by owner, on Zillow, bypassing all high society real estate agents who would have immediately alerted Vivian. The price $8.9 million cash. The closing timeline 48 hours. I used the connections Cole maintained in the international finance world, the people who disliked American fracking empires, but loved a good deal. By day -3, the buyer was confirmed. An LLC registered in the Caymans, representing a minor Russian oligarch with a penchant for discreet Texas real estate. Cash cleared. The deed transferred quietly, while Trey was still busy, trying to figure out why his corporate credit card was maxed out. The world needed to know that the golden boy was tarnished, but I couldn't be the one to say it. That's where Sophia Reyes and her anonymous army came in. Sophia, energized by my promise of payment and the sheer scale of the unfolding drama, launched her burner account at deep in the heart of Trey. Her posts were masterful snippets of deniability Spill heard. A certain high-flying oil heir is suddenly dealing with ED issues. Might need a bigger prescription than what the pharmacy currently stocks. Number Dallas T referencing Trey's need for Viagra, which I'd seen in the bathroom cabinet. Spill PT. 2 is Kaylee Dunn's new Birkin bag, paid for by the Junior League Scholarship Fund, asking for a friend who saw the invoice labeled charity work in Vivian's office. Kaylee was Trey's current mistress and Vivian's pet project. Spill PT 3, that $2. 1M transfer labeled Freedom Fund looks more like a flight fund. Anyone seen Trey packing the breadcrumbs were scattered perfectly. The Dallas rumor mill, hungry, vicious, and fast did the rest. The narrative was shifting from Lulu, the simple trophy wife, to Trey, the corporate thief, leaving his loving bride. We were ready. The bait was set, the trap was sprung, and the audience was assembling. At 7:00 p.m., in the Capital Grille private room, the air in the private dining room was thick with expensive perfume, cigar, smoke, residue, and barely concealed avarice. 40 guests. Oil barons who looked like they'd been carved from petrified wood-smarmy Fox News anchors, and several members of the Neiman Marcus buying team, the essential witnesses for any major Dallas social event. Trey had insisted on a no cell phones policy, a clear attempt to muzzle any unauthorized documentation. What he didn't know was that the professional photography crew Vivian hired, they weren't shooting publicity stills. They were beaming the feed out via an encrypted link managed by Sophia's tech-savvy cousin. I sat beside Trey, radiating icy composure. My clutch bag, a custom crocodile piece, held my single piece of necessary technology, a miniature high-definition GoPro, angled perfectly toward me and the center of the table. Vivian sat across from us, beaming her silver hair, shellacked into an immovable helmet of superiority. Big Trey, looking robust and faintly drunk, kept slapping Trey III on the back. The courses were rich, the wine, a 98 Screaming Eagle, was flowing freely, and the tension was palpable, a taut string ready to snap. Everyone was waiting for the spectacle. At 8:15 p.m., Trey stood. The room fell silent. Even the buzz from the nearby tables seemed to quiet, sensing the climax. He raised a crystal glass of sauternes. To 7 years of loyalty, Trey began, his voice smooth as polished granite. He looked directly at me, his eyes glittering with malice. And to finally being single in Dallas. The string quartet, positioned subtly behind a velvet curtain, immediately launched into the opening bars of Beyoncé's Single Ladies. The sound was jarring, triumphant, and utterly humiliating. A waiter wheeled in a silver platter, draped in black satin. Trey ripped the cloth away. There sat the black Stetson, the gold embroidery catching the light times 7 years wasted. Asterisk. The live stream instantly exploded. Sophia's feed, hit number Harrington divorce, skyrocketing past the NBA playoffs. Trey beamed, accepting congratulations from the nearest senator. He had won. I stood up, silencing the quartet with a sharp, unexpected gesture. I didn't need to shout. My stillness commanded attention. I reached into my clutch, flipped the tiny switch on the GoPro, and aimed it at my face. "Actually, Trey," I said, my voice perfectly pitched, sweet and utterly devoid of warmth, "I have 3 announcements." The room froze. Trey's smile faltered, replaced by a flicker of genuine panic. First, I continued gesturing toward the window that overlooked the glittering expanse of uptown Dallas. Our Highland Park house closed escrow this afternoon. $8.9 million cash. Half is already wired to my account in Switzerland. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Big Trey stopped mid-sip, his hand trembling near his mouth. Trey gaped. "You what?" "That's impossible. The title is Joint O Trey you signed during the closing. You were 3 sheets to the wind celebrating that sweet, sweet Gulfstream tax write-off. Remember? You said sign where the pretty lady tells you Lulu." I did. I turned my gaze toward the doorway leading to the main restaurant floor. Second announcement, Cole. The double doors swung open, revealing Cole Harrington. He wasn't wearing his flannel. He was in a midnight blue bespoke suit, the Lucchese boots polished to a mirror sheen. In his hand, held casually by the brim, was an identical Stetson hat, but this one was pure white, embroidered in heavy gold thread times Harrington air. Cole walked slowly to the table, stepping over the silver platter containing Trey's insult. He placed his white hat gently on the empty chair next to me. Trey looked as if he'd been shot. "Cole, you son of a bitch. You can't be here. You're not invited." Cole looked at his father, Big Trey, who was now clutching his chest, his face turning an alarming shade of gray. "I didn't need an invitation, Father. I own 22% of this damn company, and I'm about to file an injunction that will freeze every penny you tried to siphon to that Cayman slush fund." I ignored them, both turning to Vivian, who looked ready to combust. I reached into my clutch and pulled out a small, glossy sonogram image, placing it deliberately next to the remaining crystal wine glasses. "And the third announcement, Vivian," I said softly. "Meet your niece or nephew. Due in 7 months. Coles." The silence that followed was so profound, you could hear the ice melting in the abandoned water glasses. Vivian Harrington didn't scream. She rose, her face contorted into a mask of pure patrician fury, and with a primal roar, she swept her arm across the table, sending the $2,000 bottle of Screaming Eagle crashing onto the Italian marble floor. Red wine sprayed across the white tablecloth, like arterial blood. Big Trey didn't handle the shock well. He let out a strangled cry, grasping for the edge of the table, then crumpled an oil baron felled by his own legacy. EMTs were summoned, sirens already wailing faintly outside. Trey, seeing his empire crumble, saw red. He lunged across the table at Cole, forgetting the cameras, forgetting the dignity he tried so hard to project. "You ruined me, you bastard!" Cole didn't hesitate. He met Trey's charge with the disciplined force of a man who had spent years building something real. One clean, sharp punch. Trey went down backward, landing with a sickening thud beside his father, blood blooming vividly against the pristine white tablecloth. At that precise second, Sophia's feed switched. She dumped the curated, edited misery of the ruined divorce and switched directly to the raw, unedited carnage. Big Trey seizing up Trey, bleeding on the floor. Vivian screaming hysterically over the broken glass. The view counter on, at deep in the heart of Trey, instantly jumped. Asterisk, 2.4 million viewers watching live. Asterisk. On the national screens, the hashtag number TreyWreck trended above the World Series highlights. The narrative had become an unstoppable force. Cole and I didn't wait for the police or the paramedics to sort out the wreckage of the Harrington family. We walked out of the Capital Grille's private suite just as the main doors opened, emerging onto the buzzing McKinney Avenue sidewalk. The scene was pandemonium. Paparazzi, alerted by Sophia's early hints, had descended like vultures. Flashbulbs exploded around us. Not the polite pops of a society photo op, but a relentless, blinding gunfire of judgment and fascination. We walked past the chaos, the noise, the screaming remnants of the empire. I stopped under the harsh neon glow of a nearby bar sign. I reached down, picked up the black Stetson hat trace symbol of my failure, and turned it over in my hands. In the harsh artificial light, the fresh gold embroidery stitched during the frenzy of the collapse was visible to everyone filming us. It didn't say, 7 years wasted. It read, times 7 years wiser, asterisk. I flipped the hat inside out deliberately, tossing the ruined upon symbol into a nearby stainless steel trash receptacle. "Ready, Cole?" I asked, linking my arm through his. "Ready, Lulu." We walked away from the flashing lights, disappearing into the humid Texas night, leaving the digital recording of the collapse burning brightly behind us. Fade to black on the live stream counter, momentarily visible on a nearby digital billboard. Asterisk, asterisk, 6.8 million viewers and climbing. Asterisk, asterisk,